Minneapolis, Minnesota. Good morning and good evening to all of you. My job here at Augsburg is supporting our faculty in the natural sciences and fine arts programs for both undergraduate and our graduate programs. I have a team of LFCs, liaisons, that help our faculty, and I'm covering part of some of our departments, and I have a couple others. And I'll talk a little bit more about our team as we get moving forward. But my hope is to share with you what we've been doing with configurable reports using some SQL queries and some plans to leverage Google Scripts, Google Spreadsheets to help facilitate a streamlined process to engage our faculty with support. This is Eric Strom, so we're just getting recorded now. So Eric Strom, Academic Liaison for Computing at Augsburg College here in Minnesota. Looking forward to working with you. If you can, I do have a viewer poll on the Moodle course. If you'd like to take it, just to get a little bit of feedback from you about what you're bringing to the table, what your experience level might be with some of these tools. It will help me try to shape how I describe some of the things that we're doing here today. So feel free to grab that, and I'll check in with that in a few minutes.
Sorry, Eric, to interrupt. There's something that appears to be something up with this Gareth from the iMoot team. Something up with your mic. It seems to be fading in and out. As Matthew said, are you sitting on it or something?
Oh, I'm right here in front of it. So I've got using my built-in laptop microphone.
Right. It seems to be like very, very windy and fading in and out. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll keep trying to see what happens.
Yeah, I'll try to reposition it here. Is this a little better? I'll try to speak up too. We'll keep going, and please let me know if it's still a problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and move along. And so what we're going to start with is kind of just give you an overview of what Augsburg's support model is for faculty, and also giving you an example of some of the ways that we've been able to integrate some reporting into supporting our faculty here. And hopefully get some feedback from you about what ways you've been connecting with your LMS data, and how that can share how you might be able to overcome some of the things that faculty and students both deal with when working with courses. So one of the challenges that I've come across in the 8 years that I've been working with faculty and students here at Augsburg is that Moodle has been we've been a Moodle campus for over 10 years, and I think there's always a number of options, maybe too many options for sometimes faculty to deal with, and so it's hard to know what the LMS really isn't going to know exactly what the faculty want. It's doing what's being told of it. So trying to find that connection between what the LMS can do and what faculty want is sometimes a challenge, and we get into some trouble. And for that matter, I think actually Moodle's been getting a lot better with this situation, but there's not many warnings if something isn't set the way the faculty want. So we're trying to bridge that gap a little bit. And like anyone, we have only so many resources to support our faculty in course design and course development. So how can we be more productive with the tools that we have? So we've been coming up with this process of using, I'm calling RASCAL, Rapid Analytics to support courses and learning. We really want to develop, we have a really good relationship with our faculty as liaisons. And we are able to leverage that pretty well to get to know exactly what faculty are up to and what they need. But now we're trying to build into our workflow this alert system to kind of address some issues that we typically see coming up at various points in time of the course, and kind of be proactive about addressing those before the students encounter them or the faculty encounter them. Okay, I'm still going along. Is the microphone picking up all right? Is everyone hearing me okay? Okay, thanks for that feedback. So again, a little bit of history of what Augsburg is. We have about between 3,500 and 4,000 undergraduate and graduate students at our institution. And we do have a traditional undergraduate campus set of students, but we also have adult undergraduate and adult graduate programs that we offer. And over the last few years, we've really been making a significant shift from a traditional college and university program to a much more hybrid and online offerings as part of our overall structure. And with that has come along a lot of growing pains in terms of IT support. We've really shifted a lot of our focus from maybe a lot of the nuts and bolts fixes and printing and all of that to a much higher focus on supporting faculty with learning platforms specifically. But we have been using Moodle for 10 years, as I mentioned, and I think we've learned a lot in that longer process of spending some time with it. So let's talk a little bit about our model, because I think this is actually really important to how we've been successful in engaging our faculty. We have 3 academic liaisons for computing, which we call LFCs. And we provide that kind of all-hand support, regardless of what the issue is for IT questions, to our faculty that we are designated to. And we have a pretty close-knit team, so we cover for each other as we need to throughout the day. We also have recently, in our 3rd year, have an e-learning specialist along with our team, who is an expert in a lot of online pedagogy and is dedicated to help faculty with their Moodle development. And so together we've been able to learn a lot about what things are happening. So I'd like to maybe just, if anyone wants to chime in on the chat, please do that. To talk about how we've been asking faculty what is going on with their experience with the LMS, what have they come in contact with that's a problem, and maybe even what students have encountered. And we've kind of learned this organically in our experiences, just as we go from day to day, helping faculty with various things that come up in Moodle. And I'd like to get maybe some comments from all of you, if there's anything that really comes out in your mind. Okay, well, and it's something perhaps we can come back to as well. Really want to focus on thinking about what would be some of the things that come to you as far as what would be helpful for faculty to work with Moodle better. We'll come back to that too. I see Ben's chiming in with his junior high school charter school. Yeah, online enrollment with students kind of doing it at a flexible timeline, I could see as a real problem or a real challenge for being able to address students' needs. Yeah, I echo Gareth's comment about almost too many options, overwhelming to many faculty who are just coming on board with using the system. I would love to see the relative due dates. Matthew, that I agree. Yeah, and consistency. Yeah, it's all great. Yeah, challenging problems. And I think you might have your own specific situation, whether it's your institution has a certain expectation of how courses are managed or developed, that will change the dynamic a little bit. I know that we've, over the last couple of years, developed a course template that we've provided for faculty to use to help provide a little more consistency for our students. And I think over time, that's going to continue to be a value as we move forward. So students have a somewhat seamless experience from one course to the next, at least in terms of layout and navigation, so there's more time on task. And I'm happy to show that to you if you want to talk outside of this presentation too. Well, good. So let's move on. I want to give you a quick diagram of what we have with our RASCAL design. So it really starts with that feedback that we started getting. This is at least our story. We started with this experience working with students and faculty as LFCs to get a sense of what they're fighting with, and what successes they have too, what they use a lot. And so we've been working on developing some SQL reports to get some of that data out of Moodle and show us what's really happening. And then the design is that we bring some of that data into Google Sheets to work with for additional alerts and kind of tracking of how things are going on. Okay, and I'm just getting a quick look at some of the responses. Okay, so it looks like some of you have some or some decent knowledge or some experience with SQL based on the responses I've seen. 3s and 5s, and Google Scripts is a little bit probably the lowest setting, and Google Sheets seems moderately familiar. So hopefully I'll try to address some of this as much as I can, and I think we'll even be able to go a little deeper into some of that as we go along. Please chime in with other questions that you might have. But the way I think this has worked out well for us is the two big pieces is needing that feedback. So thinking about that feedback loop from your faculty is really key, whether it's something that's coming from you who might be developing these reports or someone else. Make sure you're partnering with someone so you ensure have that kind of feedback loop from faculty about what their needs are currently in your institution. And then we'll demonstrate configurable reports and show you the tools for the Moodle Admin ER. So what we do use is the configurable reports block. I think many of you probably are aware of this tool in Moodle. It's been around for quite a while, and it is fairly flexible. It's a nice interface to get going on things. I should note that I started really digging into SQL as a beginner about 2 years ago, 1.5, 2 years ago, and ended up taking a course from Moodle Bytes, which is talking about Intro to Moodle and SQL programming. So if you are looking to get a little more detailed into what SQL and Moodle can do together, that's certainly something I would recommend. And then the Moodle Admin ER is a plugin that ties directly to the Moodle database. And not only is that, it's handy because you can view the tables and see what kind of information is there. How many of you have used Moodle Admin ER or some other similar plugin to access your tables directly? To me, this was really key to start getting a sense of how I could be building these SQL tables or SQL queries. And we'll show you a few examples. But as we run into problems, as faculty run into problems, oh yeah, MySQL Workbench, that's great. And that's something that I have been meaning to spend a little more time with. I think it's a powerful tool, and maybe I'll learn some things from you. But hopefully, in this case, we've been trying to find ways that we can stave off those problems that faculty run into before they happen. So how can we avoid these issues that show up? And that's going to be grabbing some of these reports. With analytics, a lot of people tend to think about the big data scenarios where all this gets compiled together for learning analytics, and I'm not really interested in that right now. I think we're starting much smaller, thinking about these nuances of a very specific activity in a Moodle course that could just need a little help. And this tends to be, I think, very powerful in terms of improving the student experience and making sure that faculty are feeling comfortable with the learning platform and just being confident about being successful in it. So the problems that we kind of run into I'll share about 3 or 4 of them with you, and happy to hear your feedback about them. So we have all of our courses typically open by default when we have them populated. We have them auto created through our enrollment data and information system. But at times we do, students might actually run into a hidden course because either the faculty has hidden it so they can be doing some development on it, or maybe we've even migrated some content for them, and we do hide it by default to ensure that the integrity of the data that's intended for the courses is presented in a timely fashion. We don't want the quiz guides to be revealed right away, for example. So we can hide these courses, but then we do rely on the faculty to go ahead and reveal them. And it's easy for them to sometimes forget that they're not available for students yet. So the SQL criteria for this report was a few basic things. Is the course hidden? Are students actually enrolled in this course? Is that a course we need to pay attention to help students along? If there's no student enrollment, we're not going to worry about it. And also look at the start date of the course, and is it maybe whatever the recommended period of time might be for you in your mind before we think that maybe the course should be available to students at least a week, maybe 2 weeks before the start date, so they can, for those who are eager, they can get in there and feel like they have a handle on what's about to come their way. And so a couple of the tables we used for the SQL, and I won't go too far into this. It looks like many of you are already familiar with the SQL statements, but we look at the course table and whether that course is visible to students. If it's 0, that means it's hidden from students. So that's the problem value right there. And then here's where we check on whether the course has students enrolled. The role ID is for a student, in our case, is 5. And so the result is we have a nice report that comes up, shows us that, yes, indeed, this course is hidden from students, and these are the number of students that are affected by that hidden course. And here's that start date that we reference to pull in as well. So we get a list of those emails from instructors that are assigned to that course, and we'll be able to pull this information out and start engaging those faculty that might need a reminder. So this is a pretty simple example of one of the reports that we do. Before we go on to the second one, is there any questions at this point or comments of what you're seeing? Okay, feel free to chime in if there is anything. Happy to take a pause. So another problem that we've run into is that for those that are using forums in their course, there's some good pedagogical reasons to have a smaller group associated with their forums, so they're not trying to read 40 posts all at once, but if they have a group of 6 or so of students that are engaging together, that can be a little more welcoming and manageable for their workload. So we often encourage to use groups in their courses for forums. However, the problem can be that these forums may be set to use groups, but there actually aren't any groups created in the course yet. And so that's a disconnect of a basic setting that just don't align as far as the Moodle course function goes. So we've built a couple reports that try to address that issue and kind of give an alert or heads up for faculty. So the situation is when a forum activity is set to use either the visible groups or separate groups mode, and then that same course has no groups created, or those groups exist but there aren't any students added to them. If there's 0 members in the groups, that's probably a good flag to raise. And so then we can try to encourage our faculty to either populate those groups or turn off the group setting in the forum, and we let them make that choice. So here's a quick peek at some of that SQL that's happening. I did use a case statement to kind of verify in more human readable language what mode each of these courses are in, whether it's set to no groups, separate, or visible, and the same thing for the group mode for the forum module. So here's that group mode for the forum. If it's 0, that means there's no groups involved, so there shouldn't be any conflicts. But if it's greater than 0, if it's either 1 or 2, then that's when we have that issue with if it's disconnected with the course setting. And I see Russell's statement, using group select activity to populate groups after course commences. I see. So you have, most courses have some groups already created in your courses. Is that true, Russell? Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, I see. So perhaps this will be giving you a lot of false positives in my is my guess. Okay, so the workflow for that might be a little interesting. We could maybe have some alert to make sure that the faculty are reminding students to self-select into those tutorial groups if that's not happening. I wonder if that would be a useful option. So here you see the report for the forums and groups, that we have no group mode for the course and a very specific group mode for the forum. And so we can identify the disconnect. We also mentioned, or I didn't mention, but the forum is something that I would want to have visible in the course. I'm not going to pull up reports or flag a forum that might be hidden. And the reason is, I think I've seen a lot of pack ratting of content in Moodle courses that get migrated from maybe term to term. Faculty are kind of reluctant to delete things, even though it probably exists in an older course. They're not. They think they might use it, but so they just hide it instead. So we try to avoid flagging those in our case. Okay, so for those of you who have been administering Google or supporting faculty, you probably have encountered some type of gradebook question. So the items I'm listing here isn't a full list, but these are some of the things that I feel are really under the hood, and an honest mistake, or would require a lot of training that seems unnecessary to me. The first one is the rubrics situation. So just to explain this one, if you're not aware, rubrics do behave better in terms of their outcome for grading if there is a 0 value for the criteria that's being used for that assignment. If there is not a 0 value for each criterion, the spread of points gets calculated a little bit differently from what most people would expect. This is documented in the in the docs for Moodle, but again, there's no red flag that pops up at instructors as they're building a rubric to be telling them that they really should have a 0 value for each criterion. It's recommended, but doesn't pop up at them. So this is one that I've actually probably was one of the first ones I tried to deal with to try to address this issue and capture those things that were unbeknownst to faculty and to students. And the students might go on, and because it's this grade value, it's not very transparent that there's actually a incorrect calculation going on. It's usually very, very close to what would make sense, but it's not accurate. Yeah, I'm happy to push the development community along on this. I think it is one of those silly things to have lingering around as long as it has. So the report that I'm building is at least a stopgap for us. By the way, I should just share with you, in the Moodle site that for this presentation, all of the reports that I'm showing here, or nearly all of them, are available on the ad hoc configurable reports list of reports. So feel free to check those out when you have time. So here's the explanation of the rubric problem. Again, this is the documentation from Moodle headquarters to avoid this particular issue. So the criteria that we're looking at is make sure that all values of the rubrics include a 0 value, and we want the assignment actually turned on or to use the rubric. If it's a rubric can live in an assignment but not be used. So we try to filter out any situations like that so we don't raise a false positive, and make sure that the assignment is visible to students. So here's some of what we've built into the SQL. This first box is talking about pulling up this rubric grading area itself, and the benefit of that is that we can go right into the rubric from the report to modify that. And so down here, this is again showing that the assignment is visible to students, and that it's using the rubric method, the advanced grading method here. And here's where there's kind of a complicated where clause built in here, where we have a separate select to show where those levels are not showing 0. I exclude the ones that do have a 0 value already. So that took a little bit of time to figure out. And here's the resulting report. Again, we have a link to the course ID directly from the report if we want to use it, and jump in there and make a change or take a look. And then this is the link directly to the edit form for the rubric. So if we want to go right to the rubric and see that situation where it's missing a 0, we can take action if we actually needed to. And sometimes I've actually done that because this is very kind of a minimal, it's not invasive to the pedagogy of the faculty trying to use this rubric. And oftentimes there's really, I see 3 criterion that have a 0 value, and then there's one that just wasn't, and they had forgotten to put it in. So it's a kind of a minor change, and then I usually will send out a message letting them know that I did that. Okay, one more issue to talk about, and this is human nature. I'm going to create an assignment or an item in the gradebook called extra credit, and I forget to flag the item to be treated as extra credit in the calculations. Honest mistake, and this could actually be fairly predictive, and maybe there's some logic in Moodle we could build into in future development. If an item has the string extra credit in the name of the item, it probably should be flagged as extra credit. And if it isn't, we should notify the faculty about it. So that's the design of this particular report. So we look at those grade items. The aggregation coefficient is 0. And that, I think, is the indicator for, if I remember correctly, that it's not flagged as extra credit. But we do want to look for the ones that are named extra credit. So extra credit by name only is the problem in this one here. And so you can see here's an example of some items that showed up as a flag. You can see pretty obvious to me that faculty named this as an extra credit item, but this is actually going to be a problem and reduce the score for students if this was actually used. Imagine extra credit item worth 5 points, and someone earns 3 out of 5 extra credit points in the faculty's mind, but that's actually 60%, a 60% score, which is not so great, and that's going to be included into the course calculation. Okay, so that's a quick summary of the reports that we've been building in configurable reports using SQL. Is there any comments? I want to take a pause right now before moving on, if anyone had any comments about it. Yeah, I have seen EC as a naming convention too, so I think it would be worthwhile trying to make that report a little bit more robust to catch more things. I've been starting on the conservative side of these reports, but yes, I would agree that EC would probably catch some other ones. And then Gareth's saying, how difficult is it for users to learn SQL? I'd try to pose that to the rest of the community too. It sounds like we've got a few people who have been building or at least looking at SQL before. It is a coding language, and if you have some experience with coding, that's probably really helpful to move things along quickly for you. I started, my first language that I really learned was HTML many, many years ago, tinkering around with web pages. And so I've really kind of come into coding from a side angle, never really getting formally trained into it, but done a lot of tinkering to kind of build things that I thought might be valuable. So try to fighting through it. Russell, I like your question. How easy is it to accidentally bring Moodle to its knees? It's probably good to try to find an environment where you can do this on a separate database if you have that option to you. Because yes, if you have a really nasty query that's very complicated, it could churn for quite a while. I have done that before in a production Moodle instance before, so yes, you can get burned a little bit there. The biggest challenge, or the biggest thing to keep in mind when it comes to SQL, is you do not want to use update as part of your SQL statement unless you really know what you're doing. For those of you who don't know, update in SQL actually starts changing data in the tables of whatever database you're working with. So I usually only use select with those statements, so I can just pulling data. Select queries are safe. They just may affect performance of your production instance if you're using it there. For basic things, it's not too bad, and if you ever really want to just use it, maybe you have a chance to find some times of the day where the Moodle usage is relatively low. Okay, so I'm going to go on a little bit to Google Sheets. It sounds like you're maybe, as a group, a little bit less familiar with this, and Google Scripts. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a full expert in Google Scripts, but I can show you at least what I've done moving forward. So you can see these links are available as additional references if you want to pursue this a little further. But what really sparked my interest in doing this type of design was centered around a script template that I came across. So if you were to look for maybe searching for templates in your Google interface, I know they've changed the interface a bit, but this is something that you could do. But what I discovered is that the Mail app class in Google Sheets, in Google Scripts, got me to notice that you could actually automate having basically creating a form letter to email. And so this gave me the idea of a way to mass produce some of this information that I might push out to my faculty. So a lot of this was, again, tinkering on my part. One of the powerful fields in Google Sheets that I thought was really useful is pulling up unique values. So if I have repetition in my data reports that maybe I pull a report every week, some of these rows are going to be kind of identical except for maybe the time that I ran the report. So I want to be able to pull just the single values, instances of a course, and not multiple versions. So that's a powerful thing. And these other ones, I won't go into too much right now, but maybe we can show you a little bit more off of the presentation. So the Google script that I built, you can see the mail app.send email is kind of the core function of what the script is really doing. And what we're doing is massaging it into a really simple table to be able to pull the recipient who I want that to go to. I want a particular subject line and a certain message that should go out. And so this is a very basic version of the concept of using the email notification in the Google script. And sometimes you can have maybe a concatenate type of formula in the message column to build some of what you're doing to customize it for that individual based on who you're sending that to. You can also build some of that more complicated form structure in your message inside the script too. And then I'll explain. So this E column here is a status column that helps the script know whether or not it's done its job and whether it needs to avoid that row next time you run the script. So that the value email sent tells the script, I don't need to send that email again. So here's a smaller, kind of deeper down into the script itself. So when you are in your Google spreadsheet, if you look for the tools menu, you'll see script editor, and you can pull this in. And so you can see what I built was an email instructors function. I can name this really whatever I would like. And here's that mail app component right here, looking at recipient, the subject, and the message. And so what this does here, again, in this basic form, is the recipient is row 0. 0 is the first one in the set. So it pulls that column A. Subject was coming from column B. And the message content is coming from column C. And here's that status column to tell me if the email was already sent before. A lot of this was something that I, again, borrowed from a template out there already in the wild. So easier for me to kind of tinker with something that already exists to move on. It knows to look at the sheet that I called notifications. So in their spreadsheet, I want to point out that that's something that if you use this method to call where the data in the spreadsheet is coming from, you want to actually use an actual name here. So one thing I learned, if you change the tab of the sheet name that the script is relying on, it will break. So it is a little tenuous at times. So here's an example of the type of alert that goes out for the hidden courses report that I had at the beginning of the presentation. I think you probably want to think about spending as much time on crafting this message to your faculty as you are about building the SQL and the other components behind the scenes. Because the real goal of this is to encourage faculty to take action on whatever the issue might be that you feel is obviously worth your time putting these reports together. And we don't want to be coming off, you want to have some dignity left with the faculty afterwards. So make sure that you're not, having a negative tone about it, being always helpful, encouraging them, and providing the support that they might need to move forward and take action with it. So after spending a little time with this, we've really tried to build over the last year, trying to get some of these reports into production and using them forward. We kind of started wondering, is this really being an effective process? And so I want to share that story with you, and then hopefully open up with questions at the end. So we used another tool that was built internally that helped us migrate content from previous installations of Moodle. We have one new installation every year, and the import restore process can be sometimes tenuous. But we've provided a block that really pulls archives from older years into the current installation, and so this is now available for faculty to just grab and begin a restore process. Gareth, I like your question. I could see perhaps some value in that, and would like to talk a little bit more about having a block that provides those results in a way. I would love to see self-service for some of these things that faculty can run too. It's a great idea. So with this course archive block, pulling some of these reports, I was able to pull up a number of the log store records of when courses were restored and by whom. And so here was just a quick synopsis of 2 years worth of data of how many restores actually happened on our installation. You can see an increase in 2015. And then you can see the trend that at the beginning of the year, we kind of had kind of a low faculty percentage of doing those restores. A lot of the IT staff was helping faculty do that. And it was really at the beginning of last year, in the fall, when we launched the faculty course archive block, and we saw a pretty big jump in not only the in the number of restores that faculty were doing. So that was a success in our minds, and I think we're moving along well on that. So here's an example of using those reports, pulling that data in, and taking a look at it, all the stuff that lives in Moodle to inform whether we should be moving forward with a particular product or service, or even an idea to support faculty with in workshop training. The hidden courses report, I got a lot of great feedback. Probably a message went out to about 36 different faculty just this last term that we started up about 2 weeks ago. And over a third of those people that I sent notifications to responded back. And I think all of those positive. I think over 85% of the responses came back with the word thanks in the message in some way or form. So I think it was appreciative. Another faculty alluded it to as being kind of the flickering the headlights on the road to remind you of being safe. So overall, it's pretty great. One final thing that I want to present, I know I'm trying to close up on time here, is that if you are happy with your reporting and the alert messages that you're using in Google, Google does have a script trigger, which is really fantastic because it really automates all of this for you. As long as the script is humming along, you can create a trigger for that particular script, and it will send an email out to you, so you can pull whatever that function is that you've defined, and run that on a regular schedule. And you don't have to be logged in. It just kind of proxies as you and does that work. So that's a real high value piece if you get to that point. Moving forward, I'd love to be able to see kind of a phase 2 of what we're working on to get more of those automated alerts happening for those problems that we come across with. I've also had an idea of having a health check report. Sorry, I might be bumping my table, which is causing some of that extra sound. I'll try to avoid that. So I can imagine a self-service where faculty can run a report on their own course to flag some of these issues that we come up with and take action on their own without us having to be involved all that much. Here's a smaller peek at a smaller nuance if we were just to focus on the health check of anyone's gradebook. Here are some of these things that we looked at earlier in the presentation, whether the gradebook is visible, yes or no for the students. Have items actually been added to the gradebook? That's a good indication that it's being used. Whether or not scales are being used in the aggregation or as part of the gradebook. Not necessarily a bad thing, but something to be aware of. And then the EC items, that's our extra credit report, flagging how many items in that particular course's gradebook might need some attention. And so this is a nice overview that we can run, at least on our administrative end right now, to find out if there's any particular courses that need some attention. I imagine that we could probably collect all of that from a health check and pull it all into one master message to the faculty as an update for their course before things get rolling for them. Try to check off all the things that might need some I's dotted or T's crossed. Hope to hear a little bit more from you if you have any other ideas about what other reports might be good for us or for others in the Moodle community, or other general questions that you might have at this point.
Hi, Eric, it's Gareth from the iMoot team. Just while people perhaps writing some questions in the chat, on behalf of the iMoot team, I'd really like to thank you for putting together such a comprehensive presentation. There's so much there, and I know SQL is a very difficult subject. So once again, thank you very much for all your time and for presenting.
Oh, my pleasure, Gareth. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, Eric. That was really good. I was wondering to what extent you've ever experimented with Pentaho for doing some of these reports. I mean, there was some concern earlier on that if you crafted a poorly designed select query, you would end up with mayhem. Pentaho does mitigate some of those concerns as far as it runs on a separate database and extracts the data that you need, but and it enables you to enrich the data as well. And I've been interested in using it, and was curious if you've had any experience with it or if anyone else has.
Yeah, thanks for the question. No, I don't have any experience with Pentaho or other larger database reporting solutions. I do know that there is some colleagues of mine over at another institution here that have started to use another product, and I'm forgetting the name of it at the moment. I'll see if I can dig that up for you. But one option that we've actually been talking quite a bit about recently here at Augsburg is actually setting aside almost a live copy or a backup copy of the Moodle database that we can run on our own. So there really wouldn't be any performance hit with our production version of Moodle. And we're really actually getting really close to being able to have that happen. It's going to be a good solution for us, not only for the analytical components, but really just for a catastrophic backup process too. We could have some of that living separately from the live installation. So I think it's a really valid concern and a good design to be thinking about ways to keep the performance high for Moodle users, and still have that data available for the kind of reporting we might want to be doing as an institution. I know about IntelliBoard, but no, we have not leveraged that as well. Partly, I think, because we have enough interest in keeping our data. As an institution, I don't think we've really defined the value we have with what lives in data on Moodle right now. Really starting to still learn about what's going to be useful for us as an institution, but we haven't invested in pushing that with a third-party SaaS. And also, I think in general, most people are pretty conservative about trying to keep their data in-house for various reasons. I will say, I know that there's quite a lot of new players to the field of analytics in terms of learning management platforms that are not necessarily just Moodle specific, but can integrate for a number of other learning platforms. So it is exciting to see the landscape changing so rapidly over the last few years, and I'm sure it'd be worth continuing to see what's out there and compare what we might be doing in-house to what might be readily available with another service. Okay, yeah, I see. So Ben's comment saying that the SIS integrations would be really key. We are looking at that as a possible value for us too, moving forward with our information systems. We use Aggresso, which is not something that is too commonly used, at least in our area. But I know that their product that might be coming out here very soon might have a tighter integration with some of that. Yeah, Matthew, I think you're speaking the truth that I think learning analytics are important but not used well. And I think part of this, trying to interpret what that information really means when the reports are built is a really special craft to really think about what kind of data is there and what it means and what it doesn't mean. It's easy to kind of jump to conclusions if you're a faculty member not really in tune with what the analytics background is like. It's easy to assume falsely, and I think people really are hesitant to rely on the analytics, and because maybe the training on how to interpret that or take it as a part of a partial weight to what else is going on in the course. So I think that's a big dialogue that we need to have between IT and faculty, and kind of make sure that we're incorporating the conversation with them as we build the content of those reports.
On that note, we've done a little bit to analyze connections in forums as a way to measure how effective a forum has been crafted, to see, for example, how many students have posted, how many posts have gone unanswered across the whole course. So you can do quite a lot with some fairly simple SQL in querying all your forums in a particular course. And it may not tell you the full story, but it does help you to zero in on where you might need to look more closely as to why a particular assessment has failed or succeeded, as the case may be.
So Matthew, what do you, can I ask what kind of components of the forum activity do you try to gather to assess that?
Well, if a forum has had a post by maybe one student, but there have been no replies to that post, now depending on what your learning outcomes may have been, that might be considered a failed experiment. Presumably, if you're working on some sort of social constructionist philosophy, you would want there to be interaction between students. And if if the analytic data comes out and says that you've had a lot of posts with no responses to those, or that is to say, a lot of discussions with no responses to the original poster, you might look and say, well, maybe the question wasn't crafted well, maybe the assessment isn't clear. So, you know, we did this exercise actually as a way to look back at why some of our earlier attempts at interactive forums didn't work so well, and yeah, I think the analytic data can work, but yeah.
Oh, that's a great example. I appreciate that, Matthew. I think, yeah, looking at maybe just the length of a particular thread, if it's designed that way, is there equity in that? Or is there one that's dominating the conversation and the others are falling off to the side? And yeah, you could have a good conversation with faculty about why that might have been. I think that's a great example of how we could push that conversation forward. Well, I want to take this last few moments to just thank everyone again for attending. I appreciate your attention to it, and happy to hear any more feedback beyond that. Please feel free to find me on Twitter if you have other conversations you want to share, ideas, and perhaps we can continue to push forward what might be available on the ad hoc contributed reports to see what else we can come up with. Thanks again for your time.